Should be good. Alrighty, it is 6 o'clock. We are going to call the meeting to order. And would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty, Kathy, roll call, please.
Mayor Chapman?
Here.
Councilmember Bean? Here. Councilmember Furby? Here. Councilmember Halverson?
Here.
Councilmember Scanlon?
Here.
We are all here and accounted for. I just want to, before we go into public comment, I just want to remind the public that please keep, refrain from cursing or, calling anybody by name out. And also we do not answer any questions during the public comment. If it is something that is answerable, it will be answered under one of the reports at the end. So is there anybody that would like to speak under public comment? Okay, go ahead. Also, the first public comment is limited to 5 minutes per person. Are you ready, Craig?
Yes.
Okay.
Claudia Demarest, 821 Marie Street in Ishpeming. I would like to know what all the loans the city of Ishpeming has out. There's the one for MERS, and how many for water and sewer, and what is the interest on each one, and what is the payment for each one a month? And what funds do these payments come out of? According to the Ishpeming City Charter, separate utility funds, section 13.6, the funds of each of the utilities or utility departments shall be kept separate from the general fund of the city of Ishpeming. The city of Ishpeming is taking money out of the water and sewer funds to pay Siren Communications, and I'm questioning the legality of it. And since you've taken agenda comment off the agenda, I'd like to address item number 15, the proposed increase to the city attorney contract. I don't know why this is even being considered. Per contract, she gets 3% increase each year. That this contract remains in effect. The city has given this council very bad advice. One instance, when she told the council they had the latitude to extend the deadline to fill the council seat when Councilman Skug passed away. She is in violation of the city charter by not having a backup attorney and has been in violation since she started as a city attorney. This council should be asking why she can't get a backup attorney and should they continue employing her. Just remember, the residents of the city are watching. And when are the council and residents going to find out the financial damages from the former utility billing clerk? I think it's getting to the point where you don't want the public to know, so you aren't going to tell us.
Okay, is there anybody else? Okay, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Mark Hall, 141 Vine Street, Ishpeming. A couple of months back, my partner, Alex Babcock, another resident of Ishpeming, started a little hobby we called the Bike Pantry. We're located in the Gosser building on the first floor. What we do as a business is we are a charity that takes used bikes donated by the public, and we refurbish those and give those away at no cost to the recipients. All they need to do is give us a message on Facebook or call us, and we try to fulfill those needs of the public. Figured it's one of those bright spots in Ishpeming people don't normally hear about. So I charge you guys, if you guys are curious about what's going on, we're normally at the Gosser building from 4 to 6 on any given day. Look us up on Facebook, Bike Pantry, Facebook. Send us a message if you guys want to take a tour of our little facility and our little bike hoarding warehouse that we have on the 4th floor. I invite you guys to just come check it out. Also spread the word too. Christmas is coming up, so we have a lot of kids' bikes that are ready to be donated, and we can always use more donations of bikes, bike parts, camping gear, skateboards, things like that. The bikes that we don't use are being recycled, so scrapped, and then that money is going into a little fund we set aside to help fund other local charities and other things that are like more kid related than adult related. But again, you don't need to be a kid to get a free bike. Everyone's welcome. So that's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else for public comment? If you're on Zoom also, you can just use the raise your hand feature. Okay. Nobody on Zoom, all righty.
John Schooler, 772 Michigan Street. So I'm here again, going to ask the same question. Why haven't I been contacted by any of the city council members about the claim that I made that got denied by a certain person who said that he was unaware of any potholes in this town, especially on 3rd Street? So I'm trying to figure this out. This has been since what, I don't know, July? And I haven't gotten an answer yet, other than it's denied. So, and I asked all you guys to do that. Would you call, there's certain people that want raises? I don't get how we can get a raise when you have a contract. Contracts are for a 2-year, a 1-year, or whatever. But now we're asking for, we just got done with a contract, negotiating the contract, but now we want a raise? How is this possible? Isn't that what contracts are for? You sign a contract and that's how it works? Correct? Am I correct? I think so. But then we're gonna have people asking for raises right after the contracts are done. It just, I mean, you know, all I can say is my grandfather was maybe right, you know, unions only keep the lazy man working. So that's one of the downfalls for contracts and unions. I mean, sorry, I mean, but you look at what's going on in this city, nothing's being done. How about, let's say you want a raise, do your jobs above and beyond what you think your job entails. Because I know this city is going downhill very, very fast, and we all know that. And we have giggles and everything in here. It's funny. I think it is funny. That shows how much we care about our city. But we want raises. You guys have a good night. Hopefully you understand that.
Anybody else for public comment? Okay, Mr. Tonkin.
Mike Tonkin, 612 North 3rd Street in Ishpeming. Good evening. Okay. I've tried several different directions to get attention from some people, and I had a brainstorm. I had another word for it, but I'll just say storm right now. And I'm just going to ask questions tonight, okay? When are we going to have a meeting about the failed audit? Now, we flunked the audit that was given us by Anderson Steinhoff Tackman. Literally flunked it. No meeting, letting anybody know how we're taking care of the problems, who's responsible for it, and now it's time to pony up and take care of that. Next in line, when are we going to have a policy in place covering short-term rentals? Now, we've had several people come and approach the council over the last several years. When are we going to take care of short-term rentals? I just lost another neighbor in my neighborhood to an entrepreneur from out of town that purchased a home and is turning the home into a short-term rental. Short-term rentals are fine for certain things. But when you see your school going downhill for students, because families are not moving into town. Short-term rentals don't bring families into town. It's just my opinion and my question. Next thing, when are we going to finish the snow plowing policy meeting that we had just shortly a while ago. Okay. That's questions that I'm hearing this on the street, so bear with me. Okay, next on the line. When are you going to stop violating the city charter? With the employment of the city attorney, you are in violation. The person that's supposed to take care of violations of the city charter is the city manager. And by not taking care of the violations, which have been several over the last 6 months, just to start with, none of them have been brought up. So that is mismanagement. I don't care how else you put it. Alrighty, when are we going to send council members for training to Marquette to learn about Robert's Rules of Order, the FOIA Freedom of Information Act, Open Meetings Act, which we've violated several times, and other basic legal information? I've gone to that academy twice when I was on council. It is a wealth of information, and everybody, and I mean everybody, should take it. There's no reason not to. It costs almost nothing to do it, except your time. And it shows, believe me. Other thing, why in the budget is the marijuana license fees shown from 2023 that there was no payment made? Okay, also the amount shown for the projected income from that item was a zero also. Are we not charging fees for marijuana shops anymore? Some of these things I will be FOIA-ing after the meeting. Otherwise, why is there no input allowed on budget or other items that come up at public hearings? We seem to whiz right through public comment, and we supposedly want the public to commit themselves to us, their information, their questions, but we seem to divert that along the way. And when is there going to be a report on the Brasswire campground? Is it done? Is it in progress? What happened with the wells? How did you come out with your testing? There's many, many questions on that one. Otherwise, here we go. Why are we giving pay raises before we even know how we stand financially, which happened this past fall? All of a sudden, we get people getting 3%, 4%, 5%, things like this. We didn't even know where we sat financially at that time. And we're constantly giving raises throughout the year, apparently. That's the way it appears to me and to a few other people. And isn't that the reason for contracts? I was in business, I operated a business for 35 years. Handled millions of dollars worth of money, had employees and the whole thing. And it just boggles my mind that you're giving money away when you really don't know how much you got in the bank. And this is total mismanagement to operate this way. You've got to get your policy set so that you get back in line. Contracts are there for a reason. And the poor finance guy is trying to balance all this stuff out, and you keep throwing curveballs at him. The budget also has large line item increases in several places. What is the reason behind this? I went through that budget and I see they go from 2,500 one year and then it's like 25,000 next year. And that happened in several different accounts. Are you banking money for future purchases?
Can
So
you
here we go.
please wrap it up there?
Okay, I've got one last
Time's
one.
over.
When are we going to stop robbing money from other accounts to shore up others? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment? Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mary Farmer from South Lake Street in Ishpeming. And I'm very concerned about the seniors up at our high rise on Bluff Street. They're asking me, oh, hell, I don't know. They want a bus up there so they can get to Marquette to do their shopping at Walmart. Because they're spending too much and they live on a fixed income. They're spending too much around here with groceries. And they always had it until this pandemic. Now they don't have the bus anymore. They have to walk down to the bus stop, which is like this, down Pine, to get to the bus stop right across from here. So I don't know what you can do, but please try and give him a hand, help him out. My son takes him a lot of places, but hell, he's got a 24-year-old car. That's not going to last forever. And he's not he's not licensed to do it either if something goes wrong or, you know. And I see nothing got done next door to me except one pallet moved. That's it. So I have to let it go now because the grass is covered with snow and it's going to be in probably until June. But when the snow melts, I'll be after yous. Somebody's got to clean up this town. It's getting disgraceful. So please, think about it. You got many months to think about it. I'm tempted to do something myself, but I don't want to go to jail for them pigs. I'm not going to do that. But you can help. Thank you.
Mary, I did do some digging. Mary, I will talk to you after the council meeting on the Mark Trend stuff. Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Last call, go ahead.
Kathy Schooler, 769 Michigan Street, Ishpeming, Michigan. At the November 8th meeting, they discussed purchasing a new DPW truck. And I was just curious, it's sitting outside, wasn't that awfully fast to get it? It must have been already here. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else for public comment? Going once, twice, ending public comment, and moving on. Please also keep the volume down in the audience, please. Okay, moving on, number 5, approval of the agenda.
I would like to, I would make an addition to item number 13. I'd like to add item C, which would be a discussion of.
D, you mean? D?
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
D, which would be a discussion of the scheduling of our special meeting next week.
Mhm.
And so my motion would be to approve the agenda with that amendment.
Okay, sounds good, I'll support it. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The agenda is approved. Moving on to the consent agenda, minutes of previous meetings, November 8th and November 29th. Approval of disbursements and declare 606 library books and CDs as surplus.
And I would make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda is adopted. Moving on to the monthly financial statement report. Grant.
All right. Looking at the unaudited balance sheet excerpt for the city of Ishpeming, month ended November 30th, 2023. Starting with the general fund, notable revenues for the general fund include cable franchise fees of $19,000 and $5,000 in marijuana permit fees, which I believe are typically made towards the end of the year. Salaries continue to drive expenditures for the general fund. November was a month with 3 pay periods, and so personnel costs were pushed to $216,000 in the general fund for this month, which is up roughly, well, obviously 33% from normal, just because of those 3 pay periods. Public safety efforts make up half of the wage costs in the general fund again for this month.
And those 3 pay periods per month happen twice a year,
It's
regardless of
twice
the
a year, regardless of
just
what.
the month it fell on.
Nothing special, just how the calendar rolls. Change from prior month, we had $253,000 of expenditures over revenues from the prior month. And that brings our net revenues, or net expenditures over revenues year to date of $578,000 and an ending fund balance of $565,000 for the general fund. Moving on to major streets. $85,000 in payments from the state were received in the Major Street Fund, which brought revenues over expenditures to $136,000 year-to-date, up $68,000 from October. Personnel costs and vehicle rentals continue to make up the bulk of expenditures in major streets. Moving on to local streets, similar to major streets, the bulk of November expenditures in local streets, again for November, consists mainly of equipment rentals and personnel costs. $22,000 in payments from the state have been received in the local street fund, bringing expenditures over revenues year-to-date to $225,000, an increase of $6K from the prior month. So we're slowly climbing out of the negative there a little bit. Moving on to the DDA. The DDA paid out $10,000 for a facade grant in November, and that bulk of the remaining expenditures there were personnel costs. Net revenues and expenditures year-to-date, $33,000, bringing the ending fund balance of the DDA to $812,000. For the Public Improvement Fund for November, we made major repairs to the storm sewer system under the Partridge Creek Farm lot that's kind of east of the high school there. Those repairs to that storm sewer system totaled $48,000. In addition, we paid $5,500 for repairs to fencing near caving grounds. Total revenues over expenditures year-to-date stand at $288,000, bringing the ending fund balance to $836,000 in the Public Improvement Fund. Moving on to the sewer fund. Revenues for the sewer fund came in just over $140,000 for the month. Major expenditures driving the large year-to-date increase in fund balance, again, as we spoke of earlier last month, continue to be expenses paid out for the CWSRF project, which we are still expecting reimbursement on. Before the end of the year, we are working with UPEA right now to submit that first reimbursement packet, so hopefully we'll see those funds within the month. Revenues for the month of November surpassed expenditures by $52,000. Treatment costs of $51,000 were the single largest expense for the fund. So as we discussed, we're still seeing that negative number of revenues over expenditures of $280,000, but that is up $51,000 from last month, and we do expect that to be reverse positive with that CWSRF reimbursement. Moving on to the water fund. The water fund saw system usage of 16.2 million gallons over October, which was paid out in November, totaling $40,000. Revenues for the fund came in just under $203K. Net revenues of expenditures year-to-date, $876,000, bringing an ending fund balance to $10.4 million for the month of November. The garbage and recycle fund saw a slight downturn in performance, similar to the one that happened between September and October. I believe this is just another timing lag between our landfill charges and how we're billing them out and receiving them. I would expect this trend to be reversed for December. Net revenues of expenditures year-to-date for the garbage fund, $43,000, bringing our ending fund balance to $469,000. Motor pool and equipment fund. Rental revenues of $39K were recorded in November. The lack of snow here in other funds, you're going to see increased or a savings in expenditures when we have a lack of snow. It's not good for the motor pool fund. So we have a slight downtick in our vehicle rental revenues, but I don't think that it's anything to be too concerned about. Wages and supplies represent the bulk of the expenditures for the month, and the motor pool fund was able to secure a street sweeper from an auction for just over $3,000, so that'll be good for our spring street sweeping efforts. Major net revenues of expenditures year-to-date, $255,000, bringing the ending fund balance in the motor pool to $1.3 million. And then moving on to police and fire retirement, I was not able to get our investment statements in the mail yet, so I'm just gonna have to catch up with you guys on the next meeting, or I can send you an updated report when we get those statements in. Still working on getting online access into one of those investment accounts. I have to wait for the paper statements to come, but it's basically same as last month, $170,000 revenues over expenditures year to date, ending fund balance of 4.4 million.
Okay, I just have one question. The water and sewer funds, what's your, what are your thoughts? Are those in a healthy shape right now?
I think the water and sewer funds are doing well. I think that the numbers that I'm looking at seem strong and sustainable
Okay.
from the pattern, but we are taking on significant portions of debt as we update infrastructure,
Right.
which is obviously, kind of mission critical for the city at this point. And those payments, when we start making those, are going to make things tighter.
Yeah, understandable. Okay, that's all I had.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All righty. Can I get a motion?
Motion to accept as presented.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Financial statement reports are adopted. Okay, moving on to a presentation from Joan Movich from Spectrum regarding Channel 189.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm Joan Milvrich, Manager, State Government Affairs, North Michigan for Charter Communications, and we are known locally as Spectrum. Tonight, I would like to extend a heartfelt congratulations to the City of Ishpeming and City Manager Craig Cugini on the successful launch of the city's PEG channel number 189 in high definition. The channel is seen in 20 communities in the Upper Peninsula and is the first PEG channel in HD for Spectrum in the state of Michigan. And it's the first PEG HD channel in the Upper Peninsula. High definition TV provides vivid color and over 5 times the resolution of standard definition television. The City of Ishpeming's channel now joins over 150 HD channels on the Marquette channel lineup, seen in crystal clear high definition. Spectrum customers in the cities of Ishpeming, Negaunee, Marquette, Munising, and townships like Autrain, Rock River, Tilden, Sands, and West Branch, to name a few, now have access to locally programmed PEG channel in high definition, seen on the channel lineup as Government, Ishpeming, Michigan, channel 189. In the state of Michigan, where there are many far larger communities that operate PEG channels, the City of Ishpeming had the forethought to upgrade their PEG channel, allowing Spectrum video customers to view programming in high definition transport. Other PEG operators in the state are now looking to the City of Ishpeming as an example of a successfully launched HD channel with Spectrum. At Spectrum, over a dozen teams, locally and across the country, work together on this project. The channel has met the rigorous testing and the quality control to launch as a PEG HD channel. We look forward to continuing to carry the programming that the City of Ishpeming provides to us. The Michigan State Government Affairs team would like to acknowledge City Manager Craig Cugini, who worked tirelessly on behalf of the city to bring this project across the finish line. And we appreciate the clear line of communication, willingness to troubleshoot technical issues, and patience as the channel cleared each step of this highly detailed process. And to you, Mayor Chapman, and to the City Council, we thank you for supporting this project. On behalf of Spectrum and over 1,700 employees in the state of Michigan and 35 right here in the Marquette Ishpeming area, congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joan, can you talk a little bit about the process, just so, again, it took us a while, correct? And
Yes.
so it's hard to understand why it took so long without just a little bit of understanding of how the it's not locally worked. on a
Correct.
whole.
So as I said to Mayor Chapman earlier, I think Indiana Jones had far less obstacles than we had as we began this during the COVID pandemic. And it's also in the state of Michigan, the very first HD channel. So there were many barriers and different critical issues that we had to overcome. And we've taken a look at that, and now we're streamlining some of those barriers that we see. So given that, we are proud to hand that over to you as of October 1st.
Well, I want to thank Charter for their work, but I also really want to thank Craig for all the work he put into this. I know each one of us up here asked him several times when this was going to get completed, and we were just, he kept working through all the challenges. So Craig, thank you for doing this for our, residents. I know at some points, I'm sure you wanted to pull your hair out, and Charter too, but it's definitely going to be a benefit to our community and an example for the communities surrounding us that it can be done.
Thank you for the opportunity tonight, folks. As I travel back to Wakefield, just know that I'm nearby. I am local. I'm not anywhere out of the UP. I'm right here, and know the trials and tribulations that we all face, living and working and making a success in the Upper Peninsula. So I thank you all tonight.
Thank you. Council have any questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, now we are moving on to an update from the LSCP.
Jason, can you share that file, please?
Rachel and Chris are here, I believe. Okay,
Hello.
excellent.
I'm
Hey,
here
Rachel.
to give an update on the contract. I believe you guys have the slides in front of you.
Can you speak into the mic a little
sorry.
bit too? Thank you, because it's hard for people to hear at home, so.
Yes, we are here to give an update on the contract. I believe you guys have some slides in front of you. We have been working on getting the redevelopment ready communities to be certified to get you guys past the line. We do have some that are still pending, just waiting on approval, but we have been working on getting most of them qualified. I got to the next slide.
Yeah, Jason's working in the background, getting it to where it's the right views.
Oh, can you speak a little further into the mic and a
Sorry,
little louder?
yeah.
Thanks. I just got somebody that said we couldn't hear.
Like I said, we're working on doing some of the RRC certifications. Our goal is to finish with 5.2, the incentive policies. Right now, that one is pending to get it approved. As you can see, we have finished the 4.6, the joint meetings, as well as the internal review processes. Yeah, next slide. So our goal is to get you guys across the line, and we have been working on doing some other RRC, like boards of commission orientations, as well as board and commissions of bypass and zoning amendments.
Yeah, Rachel, if I could just step in on this one really quick. I think this is really important. One of the things when we had the contract and we signed it, we talked about flexibility, right? Throughout the year, we thought we knew what we were going to work on. One of the things that changed throughout the year was MEDC announced another round of Match on Main, which will be launched in January, and communities that are RRC essentials will be eligible for that. So while the city's goal remains certification, we've expedited and moved some things around to make sure we get you to essentials and make you eligible for the Match on Main grants in January. That does mean that some of these things that were in the contract have been shifted. We've worked with Pablo Majano at the MEDC, who's your RRC planner now, to make sure that everything is all lined up and ready to go when they're ready for review. One thing I will mention, and it's up there, there's a zoning amendment that the city was alerted to about 2 years ago from RRC that was never addressed. We discovered that a couple weeks ago, and so it's a little ironic. I'm actually the one who alerted the city about it 2 years ago when I was still on the RRC team. And it was never taken care of. And so we're working right now. It's a pretty simple technical fix, but that's one thing that'll have to go through. And so we're working with MEDC to make sure that's not going to mess with that timeline on the Match on Main grant. But overall, like you're going to see, we have the marketing plan and then the sites that were in the contract, and we've moved to boards and commissions and zoning work in the meantime to make up for that. We will, of course, get back to the marketing plan and the sites work as soon as we hit that essentials designation for you as well. Also credit, the city I know approved the matching funds for a marketing plan. So you're maximizing the use of redevelopment ready community certification, technical assistance money as well. So we'll be able to sit there and guide and help move that along as well, but you'll be able to hire outside help to really get that piece done and have RSE pay for most of that. So that's a really big win. RSE has been really high on our priority list, but one of the things we have certainly discovered as well, I think sometimes we push the city almost a little too hard sometimes, right? Like we'll just pile a bunch of stuff up in the city staff's email box, and a lot of the work that we do isn't work that like you can hand us a contract and say like, we're gonna clean the roads or we're gonna do something that we just have to check in once a month, right? A lot of it needs city feedback. It needs decisions by you at council or planning commission, things like that. And so we've been working to make sure that we're getting a better workflow kind of going on, which is something we had talked about in the previous contracts, and something I think we're getting better at as the year goes on. But that has been a little bit of a holdup on some of this RSC stuff. Otherwise, I think we would have had you to essentials already by now. So we're still hitting though for that January deadline. We expect that we will hit it. So that's, I think, the real message around redevelopment ready communities in terms of that piece of the contract is you're there, you're well on your way. This is a complicated process.
And so Chris, on that one that was sort of overlooked, can you just talk about like, what is the problem? I mean, it's technical and documentation is not so much as
Correct.
Not able to be affected as a community.
Correct. It's something, so basically what happens is there's a best practice 2.4, which requires you to have at least 2 types of missing middle housing specifically identified in your zoning code and allowed by right? So it can be a conditional or a special land use. You can build types of missing middle housing in the city, but under your definition right now, you clump it all in under multifamily housing. It's like single family or multifamily. RSC specifically requires that you break down some of that middle ground, So duplexes, quads, tris, things that you're going to allow in the city, you just allow it under a different definition. So it's a matter of defining a couple of those things, updating your zoning code to put them in the places you're already allowing them. So it's much more intentional. So that's the simple fix, but it'll require you to go through a zoning amendment process.
So we are doing those things. We've just
Correct.
Not called them out specifically in a way that our RC is saying is a best practice. And so it would require a zoning ordinance change to define it more clearly so that it meets their best practice so that you become certified.
Correct, yep. So it pulls those types of things out. With what RSC was seeing in other communities is when it was all lumped under that multifamily housing definition. A lot of communities require a much more stringent process for that. So you're putting a 2-unit duplex through the same process as a 100-unit multifamily housing development. Just didn't make a lot of sense. So RSC started pushing communities to split that out. So we caught it. I think we caught it in time. But just be aware that that'll be the last thing that'll pull us over the essentials finish line. And we're working with MEDC to make sure they understand that that's the situation and it's being worked on. So.
And then once we're over the essentials finish line, we're not far from the certified.
Correct.
How does that work? How do we switch?
Yeah, so once you get over the essentials line, there's a few more things to work on. The marketing plan is one of them. The sites piece actually comes after certification now at this stage. They just recently changed that within the last year or so. There's a couple of other cleanup items like accepting credit cards for development fees, which the city actually, I think, recently put that link online. So I think you're good there. You might have 2 or 3 more certified cards, but you'll be there, I would expect, in the spring. You don't have anything massively complicated left on your certification pile. It's now a matter of making sure that it's all done right. Because the other thing MEDC will do is they will take notice if we rush it, and do the bare bones minimum, and they will push back. So it's important that we do it right, that we show them that we're giving them high quality stuff.
Chris, I got a quick question. Can you kind of enlighten us on also just kind of the process of once we get certified, how much work goes into keeping us certified?
Yeah, so there's it depends on how you get to certification, but about 6 to 8 items that you have to do on an annual basis. So your capital improvements plan, your public participation plan review, your joint meetings, things like that. When you get to certification, RSC will sit down with us all and they will come up with a certification plan, So it looks different for every single community as long as they're hitting all of those items. So we recently sat down with Craig and, we're kind of thinking about what next year kind of holds for all of us. And we know there will likely be some changes in the contract and maybe some ways that we do things. And one of the things that we still hope to help with is that maintenance. But the truth is there'll be less RSE work to do once you're certified. But there's certainly work to do to maintain it. And cities have lost that certification if they don't maintain it.
Yep.
So I know you've got a couple more things you want to talk about, right?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't want to step in and like take your.
That's right. The next slide. We kind of touched based on this, the Blight Management Committee and the Blight Management Communications. I'm not sure what to say.
We'll tag team today.
Okay.
So I think we had some conversations about this, and in the contract, it calls for bringing the Blight Resource Group together a number of times a year. Again, we've had some conversations. You're having some wins right around that. You're seeing some cleanup and some things you really should be celebrating. And part of the conversation has been, are we meeting to meet, right, with the Blight Resources Group? And so making sure that that group actually has a real purpose and you have the correct processes in place. And so we've identified some things to really do that'll help clean up some of the internal procedural items. So we expect to get the Blight Resources Work Group, together, hopefully in January, to kind of continue to work on some of those things. But part of that conversation, again, looking to the future, is that we think that group may be in good hands in the city now, and you may not need the LSCP on that piece of it going forward. But we'll have that conversation in January, what that looks like, but we'll get them together. So you are making good progress. And there's one more slide, right? Cool. If we can go to the next slide real quick. And then there were a number of other things, and feel free to step in here if you want, that we have been working on as part of the contract as well, that housing ready checklist, which ironically kind of helps with best practice 2.4 around the RC zoning amendments. The Economic Development Magazine is in the city's court right now, but we are ready. We've got the basic framework built internally, so we're ready to run with that when we have the content. The developer workshop was something we were working on with MEDC. We want to do an emerging developers workshop, right? So one of the things that you hear the LSCP say all the time is we can invite developers up from downstate, but ultimately we have to grow. We have to grow our own businesses and our own developers. We have people who are already doing it, right? So we should empower them and help them do more of it. So MEDC has an emerging developers workshop program that they offer. We were hoping to get it up here this year. MEDC had some significant staff turnover, which made it really difficult. But we've been fighting to make sure when it does come here in the spring that it's in Ishpeming, and it's not in Marquette or anywhere else. So we're really excited about that. And then, of course, the state of the city. Thank you to everyone who came to that. And that was the first year we did that. That's a big undertaking the first year, but we've got the playbook, which should make it a lot easier going forward. So I think there's a thank you slide on there. The one thing I will also say, right before Craig reached out asking us to come talk to city council, we were like, it's been a while since we've come and talked to city council. So we do provide monthly reports on our progress, including the challenges and the headwinds that we're facing. And we were actually of the understanding those were eventually trickling down. So we apologize that wasn't the case. We've been trying our best to make sure we are communicating in writing for that accountability factor. So I think we've kind of figured out where that might have gone wrong, and that's going to happen going forward. Yeah. So we do write those every month. We wrote that into the contract actually on our end for the accountability factor this time around. So when you do start to see those, if there's changes you'd like to see to those reports in more detail, different headers, things like that, we're happy to change that to fit what you all as council need to inform yourselves.
Okay.
Your Honor, I think we need to go back and get the history of those reports.
I agree.
Sure, yeah.
And soon.
Yep, we've got them all, so.
The last page, I'm kind of frustrated. The last page is housing ready checklist. We're not there. Economic Development Magazine, that should have been out to me. That should have been done. The workshop and the state of the city, when we did the state of the city, it seemed like Siren was more, not in charge, but more supportive than LSCP was. And I don't know that for a fact.
There were two different events there, so that.
Who did this? I wasn't able to get to the.
Yeah, so let me try to help with two of those items. First of all, the magazine. So the magazine, the LSCP is ready to go, but in discussion on content, we are still digesting the data collected as part of the public input from our survey and our in-person town halls that we had with Siren. And we want to put out information in the magazine that people are looking for, not just throw content into a magazine. And so we're at my office delaying the LSCP putting together a magazine because we're trying to make sure that the content that we put together is relevant to what the residents are asking us to present to them. And so we're working, I gave, while I was sitting in a deer stand, I gave a list of potential topics that could be shelled against what they've been collecting, and we're trying to work through some of that. LSB knows how many pages we have. They know how to tell me what the content looks like. I've got to then take the ideas of the content from Siren and the input that we have from our residents, and then choose from that list of things what's going to fit in the 20 pages we have. LSP's already been out and taken some of the pictures that would go with the magazine and having it ready. They're ready to produce that magazine. Myself and Siren have to then blend topics and make them relevant and then write the stories so that they're there. And then LSCP will put it into the magazine format, get it to the printer, get it issued out. So there's this duality of contract blending, but to make sure that we're not just telling stories, but we're telling the stories the residents have asked us to tell them about. And so we're making sure that it's a quality magazine, not just a magazine. So that delay is not on LSCP, but on myself.
I'm glad you cleared that up, but I'm still disappointed that it's not out.
Sure.
Communication is high priority, certainly for myself.
Yep.
And I think the entire council. We had lots of public comment that wouldn't be there if we got our communication revved up a little bit more.
Yeah, and it needs
We'd be
to
answering a lot of those questions. So I think in the magazine by no means is the answer to everything, but I think it's an important key to getting more communication out to the public.
Yeah.
So I have no argument for that, but we do have timelines associated with things, and our Siren communication contractor has also been sharing what their timeline is, and that had a delay for 2 reasons, and they were briefing us last month, and you saw that they're on 1 month delay. And so by the end of next month, we should have everything starting to shell into a magazine. But again, we're not going to rush to failure. We're improving communication, but we haven't been good for the last 3 years. So rushing 1 more month isn't going to make us any better. And
again,
so
that's communication, knowing it's a month out. That's communication.
For us to get the stories in, yes. And then the second topic was the state of the city. Again, the state of the city was a convergence of things. Again, we had 2 meetings within a week of each other, one being the listening session and one being the state of the city. And there was a lot of collaboration between those 3 of us, the city, LSCP, and Siren. And Siren had the lead on all things listening session, and LSCP had the lead on all things state of the city. And I think both went very well. I think a first go around on both of those was not largely attended, but those that did attend participated and engaged and felt like they were useful and demonstrated to the community exactly what we said we would do, right? And so there was cross-fertilization between the 2 because we want to make sure that what goes into slides is, again, relevant to what's going on. And Siren and LSCP, fortunately for us, are in the same building in downtown Marquette. And so they have the ability to work together and converse and integrate ideas and concepts together for our betterment. And so it may be sometimes hard to see where those lines are not blurry because they are so engaging together, and we're making sure that we're cross-fertilized in all things communication.
And the developer stuff, that's a lot of that is the MEDC too.
Yeah.
Getting them up here, so.
The other thing I had, Your Honor, was and it's a huge disappointment that the city that neighbors us beat us across the finish line for the RRC certification. I thought we were ahead of the other communities that had not been certified.
And I asked Craig that too a little bit, and he did say that they were a lot further ahead than we were. So.
And I thought it was the other way around.
And I initially.
Well, I think they
Explain
had,
what we're talking about.
they had some leapfrogs, right? So they had some things where they were able to commit some funds, and they did their marketing plan already, but they had DDA funds to do some things that we didn't. And so we've now secured, or we're nearly securing those training assistance funds, and we'll be able to catch up. And there's different cities, different efforts, different budgets, different opportunities. We're taking advantage of a lot of things they're not taking advantage of, and they've put their efforts in different baskets. And so, yeah, they leapfrog.
Are we not missing some fairly big opportunities because we're not certified? I mean, are we, I'm not gonna say we're missing the boat, but are we missing opportunities every month that goes by that we are not RRC?
There are some financial opportunities that become available in the same windows as any other grant. And it's a timestamp based on where you are in time and space. I don't know that we're missing opportunities that maybe a grant that is available for an RRC certified community, but we're making up for it in a $20 million water grant, which takes a lot of effort too. And so, while I would love to say that we can do some sort of downtown plan like Nagani's doing, we're putting $20 million of water that no one else in the Marquette County got.
But be clear, that LSPC didn't get us a $20 million grant.
No, but
Cugini did that.
Well, right, and Craig Cugini and other staff have to contribute when they get a document ready, but it needs a response, right? And so they say, hey, we've got this card in Trello, which Trello's like call it a working dashboard of your status of RRC. They say, hey, we need some input on this. I got to get to that effort, give them their answer, help them scope right or whatever, and then it gets into the Trello board and moves itself through the wickets, and it's constantly moving. There's probably 7 tabs or rows of items, and it starts from zero work effort to work effort, but still going on at the local level, to work effort ready to be reviewed, to work effort kicked back from review with changes, to work effort reviewed and approved, to work effort now meeting best practice. Okay, that one's done, move on to the next one. They're working all of those wickets, so we don't have to, but on occasion, just like I wait 30 days sometimes to get to the next council meeting and get decisions so that we can do some other things in the community, they're waiting on us as well to give them some of those responses so they can push those things through the next wicket. There's not a total disengagement, but there is some lag because of those timelines and getting efforts and getting things back to them. And sometimes it's myself, maybe it's Chad on something, maybe it's Al on something, and getting those things and making sure that what Al or my staff give are, yep, that's what we want in there. Oh, we missed this thing, we got to get it to the planning commission, let's get that through. Those things all take time. You might be waiting on a meeting or something else to get that wicket.
The short answer is yes, but it's a lot more to it, but yeah, short answer is yes, we would be, but again.
The question is,
It's
I guess
not
the question.
blame on one
Well, but I think the
area.
question Mr. Scanlon's asking is LSCP engaged and working for the community as designed by contract? And I believe the answer is yes.
I would too, yes.
I believe that I believe they're working on our behalf. I believe they're working diligently on our behalf. And I believe that there are some natural delays that occur as part of the process, as part of the works. They make adjustments. As you see, they found something that got stuck in the Trello and we didn't get done, but they're going to fix it. And they're looking at it and moving it to a priority so that we don't miss the next March on Main opportunity. And so they're backwards planning in November and December to make sure that we don't miss something in January. So they're looking forward for us. They're trying to make sure we don't miss opportunities. But those windows open just like any other state grant, probably once a year. Sometimes if you're lucky, twice a year, and it's very competitive. Would we have been ready to compete for any of those other dollars? I don't know. Nagani's focus was downtown development. They had a DDA director that they paid for that came out of Marquette that had retired and was focused, and they're re-retired now. And so how much effort are they going to get? I don't know. We might leapfrog on them now because they've lost that director. So it's, to compare ourselves one for one, not really possible. To keep ourselves competitive, LSCP is absolutely doing that.
And I think we have to be careful where we're comparing ourselves to other communities too, kind of like what Craig just said. There's there's a lot of possibilities that we're gonna be able to do some things they can't, and vice versa, but they also only have one main street going through their community. We've got a lot more of that
There's
too.
different things, and some of it's just like basketball and football.
Yeah, I mean, we're
Same competition.
right. We're working on a complex set of things for the next few years, and they had their one street redone this past summer. I guess I don't want to throw too much shade on that. I'm not trying to, but
Well, and I guess I spoke because I thought there was opportunity to speak, but I think it's also important that maybe their executive director take a moment to answer those questions and concerns for himself. But
One thing after your discussion is we need to expedite. I mean, we're overloading your office, and I'm not sure how. It's nothing we're gonna solve tonight, but we need to expedite these kind of things as much as we can and get this across the line.
And I also believe our DDA has the funds to where they should be chipping in some of this to help us get over the finish line too. I mean, they're on the downslope of the payments for Mountain Road, and I think it would be in our best interest to ask the DDA to contribute some areas that are going to benefit the downtown district, especially in this instance. And I think that they need to be partners with us on some of this stuff too going forward, because it is going to benefit the DDA in a big way. And I thought I kind of got the point across when I was the council representative on there, but I guess I failed in that part. But hopefully Renell can help us, give him a little shot in the butt and see if we can get him to spend some money to help. And I saw you writing that down, so I appreciate that.
Okay, good, thank you.
I appreciate those questions. And one additional thing I would add on the benefits, which I think is a big change and a really good change for us up here. Previously, the biggest benefit of getting certified is access to the redevelopment services team, right? Which is that team that does proactive development in certified communities. Until a few months ago, that team was entirely based downstate, right? So we had to time everything around like when they could manage to get up here and work with all of us. Many of you know Jen Tucker at the MEDC. She has moved into that role on behalf of the entire Upper Peninsula. So we now have access to the strongest tool of certification right here. I mean, literally like 20 miles from here. So, and obviously you all know she spends a ton of time out in the West End, just like we do. So we're really excited, and that's actually expediting, I think, to your point, Commissioner Scanlon, that we really do need to get this done and access Jen's expertise around there as well. So.
Thank you.
So.
I was curious regarding the joint meetings. I know that the Planning Commission and the DDA just had a joint meeting. What other joint meetings have happened this year?
So that's the only one we're aware of, and that counts for RSE's purposes. So we have documented that. I know last time we had the 3 or 4 boards here together, and there was a lot of interest in continuing to do that. And we continue to, happy to arrange that. But that's one of those things, as you'll see in the former reports, we've kind of highlighted as, let's do that, and it's been hard to just find the timing. So.
When does our agreement expire?
We're working on a January timeline.
Yep, I believe it officially expires the 31st of January. Yep. So.
Yeah, and I think the DDA needs to start contributing to that in order to keep us moving at a good pace. I don't like the idea of cutting too much of the LSCP, because I think they're doing a lot of good work for the city, but I think the DDA needs to also shoulder some of that money on the moving forward too. Yeah.
So with that, again, I mean, I apologize that those reports weren't making it to you before. Again, we're happy to come speak to you, whenever. So please give us a call, shoot us an email. If you have individual questions, we're happy to answer those too. But
well, if you can even get them to Kathy, that would be the simplest, and she can forward.
Does that make sense, Greg, to do it going forward? We'll do that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Alrighty, we are now moving on to agreement extension for the assessing services through Marquette County in the city of Ishpeming.
So as you know, we have our assessing services through the county, and they have proposed a no-cost extension of up to 3 years.
So can I get a motion to,
So moved.
okay,
And second.
all right.
One question, Your Honor,
Yep.
is city staff happy with the job that's being done here? Or is there anything that, before we sign the agreement, that we would ask them to incorporate? And has the language been just copied? Is it boilerplate language?
Yeah, it's just a
Attorney
straight,
doesn't need to review.
it's just a straight extension of the same contract for 3 years at no cost for that extension. And we are working to make sure that we're completely satisfied, but I don't think there's a missing piece of the contract. I think there's some things that we've learned that would be useful within the contract that we could try to improve upon, but they've been available, we just haven't asked for them. So I think as we've gone through some challenges lately with some of the things that we've been dealing with, primarily with blight, that are teaching us some of these challenges as it relates to taxes and whether or not somebody's paying or not paying and how it relates to other things related to that blight process. We're going to try to improve on our outputs from the assessor's office, but they are covered within the assessment
And
contract.
I'd like to just quickly ask Grant his thoughts because this touches his area in a big way.
Yeah, I'm happy to share that Marquette County Equalization has been wonderful to work with. They're always there, very quick response time, very helpful for me as a new treasurer and then later a new finance director. So
And is the BSNA software, this is kind of where that was purchased for, to talk to the county, and is that being beneficial?
Yep, so just last week, they were able to remote into my computer and load our updated winter tax database with all of the, updates that they were able to push and our new bills. Our bills went out without a hitch. Yeah.
And I can offer that Nikki is here from the assessor's office. If you had some questions for her, if you wanted, we can have her come up to the podium.
I have none specific.
No, I don't either.
I know that working with the county has saved us a lot of money over the years from back when we had our own assessor.
No, they are absolutely fulfilling their contract. We just feel like maybe, at least I feel like maybe there's an opportunity that we might be able to use them further, but within the scope of what's written. So.
And I always felt when I was on the board of review, they were excellent. So any other questions, comments? All right.
Thank you, Nikki, for being here.
I mean, I know we had a support because we were talking, but okay, perfect. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Agreement between Marquette County and the city of Ishpeming is adopted. All right. Moving on to the special event applications, Nakamanon Ski Marathon, January 26th through the 27th, the Polar Roll, February 17th, 2024, and the Iron Range Roll, June 1st, 2024. Caroline, have you had a chance to review all of these?
Look in order.
Okay.
Your Honor, these are all repeats, so I would move that we approve all three.
Perfect. All right, any further comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All of these special event applications are accepted. Moving on to second reading of amendment to ordinance 11-300 purchasing procedures. Caroline? Oh, okay, Caroline.
This is just the second reading. I think we talked about a little bit at the last meeting, that it essentially replaces the ordinance that we have now about the appointment of a purchasing agent, which has never worked well in the city. And the procedures in the ordinance, the proposed new ordinance, reflect what is actually happening and update in terms of methods to the modern age.
And there are no changes to anything other than that, correct?
And I believe the
From first
council
reading,
did not.
you mean from
propose-
first reading to second reading? Yeah, the council did not propose any changes, and we did not make any.
Okay, and this aligns with our city charter, correct?
Oh, yes. In fact, the charter requires the permit.
Okay, all right.
Then I will make a motion that we approve the second reading of ordinance number 11-300, purchasing and contracting procedures ordinance.
Okay, is there any further questions or comments from council? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion, the ordinance 11-300 is adopted. Moving on to 2024 city council meeting schedule, proposed changes. I will take A, B, and C, and we'll go with D separately.
So just for the sake of awareness, the item C is not related to a holiday, as is A and B, but is related to a national election that happens in this
Yeah,
year.
and we want to give them a
And
break.
we have, a lot of taxing effort on staff during an election, getting the election results down to the county. Sometimes happens at very wee early hours of the morning, and then to turn around and have a long day after. It would just be appreciated if our staff could have a 1 week break.
I think that's perfect.
I'll add to that the planning commission moved our meetings, which typically happen the Monday before council, and sometimes those things then relate to council meetings. And so planning commission moved ours similarly, so they will align better.
And we've done
we
this in the
move ours.
past too, I think.
Mhm.
Correct me if I'm
Yep.
wrong. Yeah, okay. I'll make a motion that we accept it, the changes, A, B, and C.
Support.
Okay, motion and support. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the changes are accepted, so please, members of the public, just please make sure you check your, the city website for these changes. Moving on to D, which is our special council meeting next Wednesday. The request to change that date, and let's see what we can come up with.
So this is my request. I've had a medical appointment that comes up on the 13th, which will make it very difficult for me to participate in person, and I would really rather not do that.
I guess we
Caroline and I-
can't anymore on Zoom, so.
Well, we discussed the potential of it being a very short-term medical disability, which it would, but I would still prefer,
I
if
understand.
at all possible, to not do that either. So I'm really fine and flexible with wherever we want to move it to, but I just would prefer that it wasn't next Wednesday.
Move it out to the 20th.
I would be okay with that. I would be okay with the 20th or the 27th.
I would prefer the 20th over the 27th personally,
That's fine. I'm good with that.
just because it's, what's that?
I won't be here the 27th.
Okay,
Okay.
20th, okay with everybody? Same time, same station? Alrighty, moving, do we need a motion? We don't need a motion.
Let's do a motion.
All right.
Yeah.
So moved.
Then,
The
Then I
20th
support.
at 6, okay, perfect, that's fine with me. Any other comments or questions? 6 o'clock on the 20th, yes. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Perfect. Next week's meeting is canceled and moved to the 20th at 6 o'clock. Perfect, okay, moving on to the proposed 2024 City of Ishpeming fee schedule. I do have a question here, and it does relate to my question earlier. We have a relatively comfortable water and sewer fund. So I guess I would like to see us potentially not raise the water and sewer rates to give our community a break.
So
And I would make that a motion to keep our water and sewer rates as they are.
I will support that.
Okay, we have motion and support on that. Is there any discussion on that?
There is, I thought that we had, when we did the audit, I thought that that was something that was brought up, that was, correct me if I'm wrong, that was pointed out as something that we had not done this year, that was not helping the growth of those funds, and it was recommended. I thought, again, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought it was recommended that that be re-implemented.
I remembered the discussion, but I didn't think it was recommended.
I didn't either.
And I've been wrong before.
So just for sake of discussion as well, pointing out that the increases as outlined on the existing rate schedule were outlined in the 2024 budget, which was just passed. So if we do bypass those rate increases, which were scheduled, and part of that budget message, just look at my numbers here real quick, but that will affect our 2024 numbers significantly in the water fund. Getting rid of that 5% increase for the water fund would put expenditures over revenues by about 100K. So we would need to revisit the water fund if we did that. And in the sewer fund, it would lower a pad that we have for 2024 from, believe 140K down to roughly $40,000. So I think, again, council should also consider the new debt that we're taking on, that we will be making payments for the next 30 years, which we aren't making now.
Part of my reason for not wanting to raise them right now is because I don't want us to get down the road on these new things that are coming in and us having to raise them a second time. And I also don't agree with a 5.
I understand that statement, maybe you can help.
We've had requirements though on previous work that we've had to raise the rates.
We were
That
under the
wasn't-
debt reduction
We're
from
in the
the
debt reduction from the
state of
USDA.
Michigan.
Which I thought included part of this, the annual.
No, that ended,
Okay.
in my mind.
Yeah, I thought the annual.
That-
last year was
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Right.
are not
Okay.
under
So-
that
I
reduction anymore with the Treasury Department.
Okay.
However,
still don't like the idea of
uh,
a 5% increase.
Jason and I discussed this a little bit at the beginning of the meeting, and I was looking for the input you just gave us. How much it would hurt the fund or negatively affect it. The other thing that I'm still concerned with, and I completely understand that you don't have an answer, is the problems with our water billing and where that's gonna end up. I know you can't predict that because there's still discovery. But I guess I would withdraw my support, and I would ask council to do a quarterly or a 6-month review on this and see if in my mind, I'm hoping that we are going to show more lucrative billing.
If I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so what we're seeing with the water billing right now, and what I've discussed with our auditors, is essentially to draw a line in the sand, just like we did with some of our finances. We do things moving forward correctly. We are installing new smart readers as fast as we can. Donnie is booked solid going out and installing these new meters. If it's an issue where it looks like someone's been overcharged, yeah, of course, we're gonna look into that. If it's an issue where it looks like they were just estimating at the minimum and not reading, we draw a line in the sand, we move on. We're not gonna go back.
And I completely
Yeah,
understand.
and just, I don't know if we've ever had that conversation, so yeah.
I completely understand and personally agree with that.
Mhm.
You can't resurrect a lot of that stuff, and you're
No,
too
it's-
busy to try.
Residents have a right to timely billing.
The thing that I'm referring to is moving forward.
Yep.
I'm afraid that in the past, and not an accusation, a thought, was that my water bill's too much, okay. Problem solved. I'm afraid too much of that happened, but that won't be happening. So I think that's gonna
Yeah.
make us a better profit or.
Yeah,
better
and
income.
that's something because of the method that I don't know that I'm ever going to have, or that it would necessarily even be fruitful to say, well, here was the number. But what I'm hopeful and what I'm predicting is that we will see a slow uptick, like you're saying, as some of these reads are locked in. And I think it's a benefit to residents too, to have these new meters. They can reach out and troubleshoot usage with laptop reads. We can look at real time on what a meter is doing. So it gives staff some extra tools to support residents and what's going on. And if it's a brand new meter, freshly installed with a new read, we're confident in our billing, you know.
And I still think though we need some type of idea on what was lost. As a council, we have to answer to the citizens too, so.
I can try and compare revenue figures year over year.
So I'm not necessarily sure that that's even possible. We can make estimates as Grant's suggesting, but the person that seems to be being blamed here was trained by somebody who was handwriting meter reads.
Yes. we know
Trained into ENCODE. ENCODE was not wildly successful. So we may have lost stuff from the handwriting method to the ENCODE method, and we may have lost some going from ENCODE to BSNA method. We know that the BSNA method didn't come with the training we expected because of COVID. And there wasn't a request for assistance for training. There wasn't an oversight in training, and there was potentially some fat fingering that might have happened, but we don't know that happened or not. We don't know that somebody was getting a pass every time somebody came in and made enough noise, they got a pass. But there was some things that we wondered about.
I don't think we can fully blame.
Well, I'm suggesting you can't, because if somebody was trained incorrectly or trained in the method, and then the training didn't translate from one system to the next. I mean, you can imagine what the losses must have been when they were handwriting every number and transcribing, and oh man, that number doesn't look right, I better change it. I mean, there's methods that happen and there's things that we can figure out. We can't figure out all of it. There's not gonna be a one-all, end-be-all, here's how much you lost in the water meter. We discovered a problem, we managed the problem, and now we're trying to figure out where we have to start fresh with a line and where the new meters are kicking in and where the old meters are gonna have to be moved out because of their fail rates. We had leak tests that were challenging at best, but 20-page reports that we could try to analyze and do our best. We've got higher qualified staff, we've got higher qualified water licenses, we've got higher qualified meter installs, and we're learning the BSNA software better. We've had training by people working in those systems that are helping our staff. We have a total staff turnover in that area. And so what we can project to our residents is that we've taken necessary steps to ensure that billing is correct. But over time, there were losses, and over time, we're now correcting those losses. If you're looking for here's how much, probably never gonna know it because we can't figure out what was done and when on all things. But we know that we've stopped that and we're moving forward, and the method is solid and working. We've had staff training. We're projecting some training days in the future for additional training, and we're analyzing records, we're analyzing meters, we're doing all kinds of new things that are absolutely projecting revenues to start coming back in line where we have a solid feeling of accurate recording. But I don't know that you're ever going to see, and I don't think that anyone's ever stated we would provide that. We said we were trying to figure out as best as we can and stop the action that were negatives and move forward. Right from the audit day, draw a line in the sand was the comment of what we were taking our approach, and we've been working through that and discovering as we discover, like we talked, that's a mesh of
Again,
problems
but I
worth
still think we have
discovering
to
and
have some
fixing.
type of ballpark idea.
I think we will get a ballpark when we look at our books, when we see the trends over the next year.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever gonna get an exact, but a ballpark would be good.
And so we will, that will be shown, but I think we need some data and we need some data points. Is this a blip? Is this a high month? I think this time next year, we should have a good picture of what that trend looks like.
And I want to clarify again, I'm not blaming employees either. But it seems like people take the bad habits rapidly and the good habits are harder to carry. And there was so many people over the last 25 years that came and left that position and fill-ins and all the different
People and
programs
methods. People and methods, absolutely.
Coming from a utility background, this stuff is incredibly complex. It is.
I'm
It's
sure
very,
it is, yeah.
there's a lot of moving parts to this, and we're moving. I'm so proud of my staff. April and Kathy Hakala, our new water biller, are just breakneck speed digging into things. But it will take time, just like anything else. And I think we'll see that figure, and I think it'll be positive.
So getting back to our motion, I guess I would be more comfortable with passing the increase with keeping in mind that we are going to review it in months.
Well, and also,
I would be willing to amend my motion, but I cannot support a 5% increase.
well, I would
just
like
can't.
to remind all that we are in the stage of our $20 million water line replacement process where our finances will be reviewed. We will get another S&P rating review and our financial status and whether or not we have the revenue to support taking on the loan debt that is projected.
But we
And
would be
all
able
of those
to-
things culminate around August.
Right, but would we
so-
not be able to then change, if we have to pass an increase, I believe we would be able to do so, correct? Pardon me?
Oh, but if they review it and we haven't increased,
I really
I don't know
could
that
not
we
hear
can-
you on that one, Dick.
But I'd also like to throw my sense in here. I'd rather you guys do the increase, but strongly encourage that we do a rate study, not just pick a ballpark number out of the air. You know, there needs to be, you have to account with the new finance department. You got to do all your expenses and revenues for the year. We need to get these water meters in as fast as we can so that we can start getting an accurate account of how much water we're actually using a year. You can't even do a rate study right now because we don't have all the information. But that's why I'm here. I'm here because we are going to do a rate structure. It's going to change a lot of this, but we just need the information in there.
I have a question, though. Would we be able, I was trying to get my question answered earlier, but would this fund be able to be healthy with a smaller percent increase? I don't like the idea of a 5%. I really don't.
I understand. I mean, I'm a resident of the city myself, but as far as the budget goes right now, it's dependent on the 5% increase. And the place that we'd be cutting, I think, would be installs on those new meters, which is a large thing that we're trying to accomplish. And then I believe the fund just moved out of a negative unrestricted net position this year, the water fund did. So although it is behaving healthfully, it's gaining every month, I'm concerned that with both the new debt that we are taking on and our meter infrastructure, which is like old, it needs to go now, or yesterday rather. I'm just concerned about that. That would be my concern. So speaking as your finance director, my recommendation for the health of the fund would be 5%, with total respect to, as a resident, that's a rate increase. I understand that.
It's hard for me to get to that because there are people who are struggling to pay what we charge now, and we are high, in my opinion. So I'll withdraw my motion, but I cannot support 5%.
There are possibilities with a rate study in place to look at revamping what our minimum bills are, getting rid of a minimum bill. These are things that a well-functioning utility can do, but we have to get to well-functioning before we can do these things. So it might look like a bit of an increase and then later a really favorable restructuring, but the system needs to continue rebuilding itself, both in the metering, the reading.
One
and
thing we don't even know right now is everybody with a water meter is paying for lost water. And we've been working on it very diligently.
Brad is actually excited because this is the first time we've been in an all-time low on our water usage. So there
And
are
that's
drastic changes.
That's gonna bring the consumption will bring the debt down.
But will we ever bring down the rates? That's
The
my
rate study,
question.
a proper rate study needs to have all the numbers, and one of the biggest changes that has to happen in my mind is that you have to have it by meter size. Right now, we bill everybody, their base rate is the same. So if you got a 6-inch meter or you got a 1/2-inch meter, you're paying the same base rate. With the rate study, that will change. The bigger the meter, the bigger your base rate is gonna be. And then also, one of the things you guys could think about for a while, because it is gonna come up, my suggestion is gonna be to get rid of the 2,500 and go back down to the 1,000. So, because the grandmothers out here they're not using 1,000 gallons. Why are they getting 2,500 free? It doesn't benefit them. That's gonna drive those fixed rates down a lot. So it's just patience, and we're really working on this really hard.
Oh, I understand that, I do. But Renell, go ahead.
Well, didn't we, I wasn't here last year, but weren't the water increases waived last year?
Yes.
So we have so many water issues, and I mean, I'm not a happy water bill payer either. But I'm also not in the position to be way out of our budget again, looking at special assessments, having to come up with money to make up for our budget. We're talking about, and I realize $5 a month might be a large increase, but you're 5% on 100 is $5. Okay, we're looking at a $6 increase. That's going to bring our budget into line. I mean, that's got to be, we're going to have to really make cuts on our side, and the city residents, including me, are going to have to, we're going to have to, we put ourselves in this position with kicking the can down the road. And so next year, are we going to be in the same position where we're going to be asking these people for a 10% raise or a special assessment? It's time to pay the piper. I'm not for raising the bills, but this is what we voted on for our budget. You know, we knew that this was part of it. And in order to bring our budget numbers into line, this is what we said we were going to do. And I don't see kicking it down the road another year. I mean, as long as we're going to keep a tight rein on it, I mean, and in the future, we might be able to figure out a way to decrease the overall bills. But for right now, while we're getting our budget in line, I think it's irresponsible to not pass this. I really do. That's my opinion. You're all live in the city like I do. My water bill is very high.
I guess I don't, my other thing is I don't understand why this was ever voted in to be a 5% when during the USDA thing, it was only, 3% that was mandatory. So.
Well, because we're trying to get our budget
5.
in order.
So.
So
I did
You
withdraw my,
rescinded- you
yes, I did.
rescinded your
Mhm.
motion, then I will make a motion that we accept the proposed 2024 rate and fee schedule as presented.
Your second.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Is there any further discussion?
I didn't see anything else on here that jumped out at me as needing a discussion. I would understand that probably most of these are, you know, time that's required to be put into reviewing applications, and cost of materials, involved in those.
I did see a
increases.
couple. I mean, I guess one of the things I saw, fence permit went up from 10 to 25 and a sign permit went up $20. So I guess I was gonna question just those two alone, why it needed to go up that much, but.
I mean, our rates are not out of line with the other communities in Marquette County. What we've done is we've kept them as low as we can in order to make sure we maintain operational costs. And you've made operational cost decisions as part of budgets that this helps to offset some operational costs. So rate structures, rate fees change everywhere all of the time. This is not, I would tell you that a fence fee was more expensive in Ishpeming Township 3 years ago when I applied for one. So, I mean, we're not exorbitant rate fees.
Yeah, and I do have to just say one thing. Renell did change my mind a little bit too, because I was the person who got into council and said, we gotta stop kicking the can down the road. And that was one of the first things I said when I got into this council, so. Yeah, all right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, Kathy, roll call.
Councilmember Dean?
Yes.
Councilmember Furby?
No.
Councilmember Halverson?
Yes.
Councilmember Scanlon?
Yes.
Mayor Chapman?
Reluctantly, yes.
Motion passed 4-1.
Okay, moving on to proposed increase to city attorney contract.
So as you know, we've been working Caroline to death between regular actions of the attorney and then the additional nature in which we've been pursuing blight. I think it was maybe early last year where we talked about changing our strategy in how we deal with court actions. And that has taken a lot of time, a lot of energy. And Caroline has worked within the retainer fee schedule very strongly, staying within those boundaries for almost all of her contract period. But inflation across the US is not immune just because she's the city attorney. So she's looking for a rate increase to that contract, which seems fair and reasonable. And the workload that she's taken on has been pretty substantial. So, and I don't think it's getting any lighter. We keep taking more and more blight actions. We see some on the horizon yet, and lots of contracts. We've been doing a lot of contract reviews for multi-million-dollar contracts. We've still got more applications in the hopper. Those take a lot of time to review. So I think it's up to you guys to determine whether or not those are fair assessments. But I think from my perspective, Caroline's worked very hard, and contrary to public opinion, has not steered the council incorrectly, and that the charter has correct language and it's been applied. She offers an opinion as an attorney, and the council accepts or rejects those recommendations. And I don't believe that any of them would have been wrong opinions, contrary to that public opinion as stated. But you guys get to decide. So that's on the table here.
So for discussion purposes, I'm going to move that we do grant the 5% increase for the city attorney.
And I will second. And
I have a question. I do too.
So we increase those fees every month by, or I'm sorry, not every month, every year by 3%. And so this request is for one-time 5%, which would be an additional 2% on top of the normal 3%. Or,
It's up to the council, of course.
okay,
But the request is for an additional up to 5%.
okay, so,
In addition
In
to the
addition to the
contract.
3%.
okay,
And I would ask that you consider, if you did award an increase, I would ask that you consider that start January 1 of 2024.
and that increase is applied to the monthly payment as well as the additional hourly rate that after 40 hours.
Correct.
Nobody's harder on the attorney than me for what are you doing for me? If somebody stops me on the street and says, well, you pay the city attorney a lot, which I don't think we do in the attorney land. Most of the things the city attorney does are never seen by the public, by the taxpayer. And some aren't seen by the council. Some of the issues we've been through, most of this council has been sued several times, and we were successful. The blight process has changed considerably, and we're finally winning. We've torn down probably 6 or 8 houses in the last year and a half that would not have happened if we didn't go to court. And when I was elected on this last term, I went to court, Stewie and I went on a couple of occasions to watch the judge award the landlord in question extensions. And it wasn't with this attorney, it was with a different attorney, but it was foolish. That's not happening anymore. The debris, not necessarily raising a house, but the debris, we're starting to get things cleaned up. And these are the biggest complaints that we've had. And we've got a toehold better than we've ever had. And we're starting to get action, and a big percentage of the credit goes to the attorney and our codes and police department. The other thing we talked about, the backup attorney, when most of this council looked for an attorney to replace our previous attorney, they're not there. And this attorney reached out pretty much to the central UP, and there's nobody that wants to be the fill-in either. And if we need to change the charter, we'll have to go through that. But when something doesn't exist, you can't make it happen.
So it also does specify in the agreement that if a backup attorney were necessary, it's outlined the process and the qualifications for which one would be identified. And I don't know that we have needed to identify one. So it does lay out a process for doing that, should it be necessary, but to my knowledge, it hasn't been necessary up to this point, so.
But the contract there is different than what our city charter states. And that's one of the things that I guess I think we should try again to find a backup attorney, as it is part of our city charter. And I do have another question too. You're required to carry a liability insurance based on the city too. I do have a question on how much that is.
The policy limits, I believe it's $1 million per occurrence.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and you're carrying the $1 million, because that's, and I do understand that's a little pricier too than a normal liability.
Right, no,
as
that
well.
had,
Yeah.
right.
So if I'm doing my math correctly, which is kind of always a little questionable, I see if it was an 8% increase, 5% on top of the contracted 3%, that would be an increase of $3,671 for the year.
But then we would also be paying 8% on top of any extra billing.
Yes, so that would be, I didn't figure out what that hourly rate would be. It was $136-ish, would have been last year, so be 8% on top of that, probably, maybe in the ballpark of 145.
And I get
for which there's been minimal
And I understand that, and I hope that it would continue to be that way. But there again, we have been hearing tonight that, you know, the budget too, was this included in the budget?
I'd have to look at the contract, figure out what the total would be. I know we're splitting it between 3 funds right now, so the impact would be
Because this is
about
the
a
only
grand a
raise
fund.
we're
So the-
considering.
I don't
either,
think
so.
that I knew to specifically consider this, so it would be an amendment you'd have to make, would be probably the answer to your question, yeah.
Yeah, so it probably would have been in the neighborhood of $1,800 would have been the budget, would have been about the 3% increase that
Yeah.
probably that would have come from that. So up to 36, so that would be like maybe $1,700 or $1,800 difference.
And for me, once again, though, I'm going to what Pat said, if we need to, we pretty much have only a couple choices too, when it comes down to what our charter states. We either change the charter or we ask that the attorney, once again, try and find a backup attorney for.
I think
for
that's
that.
very reasonable. I think that's a good idea.
Mhm.
That we have her do the search again. There might be new attorneys, we don't know.
Yep.
But I know that diligent efforts were made and nobody wanted to.
Well, I understand that. Yep. So I guess I would ask that we once again approach that and try to get us a backup attorney, just so we're not in violation of the city charter.
I don't believe you're in violation of the city charter because you haven't had a need for one and you have a contractual relationship that would secure one prior to that
Well,
happening.
the charter states we have to have a named one.
We can't force somebody into an agreement.
We
with
can't
us if
force
they-
it,
if they
but
don't.
I-
If there's no one to take the agreement, we can't force them into an agreement.
I understand that, and there again, that's why if we cannot find that, we should probably look at doing a charter commission. I mean, we can't change what it says unless we do it, so.
But you did the search under contractual term that did not fruit anything.
I
And so we
understand that, yep.
we made a contractual language change that was acceptable to the council, for which you accepted as meeting the requirements. And even one of the members of the public audience is sitting here tonight that was on that decision. And it met. So now we're talking about an extension of that or not. So what I would suggest you might be suggesting is that you were considering the cost extension with a potential for a change to the contract language, that we first explore the opportunity to find a backup attorney, but should it not come to fruition, you still have the language that could then be extended as a council action. But that does, in fact, comply with your efforts and need to find a backup attorney. If there's not one to be found and you have contract language that says the attorney will find one as part of that contract term, you've got a contract.
That it doesn't, having a contract and what the city charter says is two different things, in my opinion. If she goes out and tries to find one again, then okay. And
0 equals 0. It does not equal 1.
okay, city charter is what we are governed by.
Without a doubt.
And that we must try and follow that. I understand if there is not one available, but again, I think it's doing our due diligence, as Pat said, to revisit that and try again. It doesn't hurt anything to try again, and if we don't find one, I'm more comfortable with that. But it still states that we should try. Well, it says we must.
Yeah, great, we can try again. I maintain with my motion that.
I'm not
I
asking
think-
for motion change.
No, I know,
trust
I have
Caroline. I do,
so we have a
yes.
motion and support to approve the increase. I think that Carolyn has done a very good job. I think it's been, well stated that she's put forth good effort and has contributed positively to the city's efforts. And it's not a substantial, substantial it is substantial, but at the same time, it's, the actual monetary figure is not, is not great.
I'm not saying anything to the contrary on that at all, Joe. No, I'm not, so.
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna be very unpopular and everything else, but I can't, the same with telling these people you're paying more for water bills, I can't justify any more raises. We should have never voted on the raises before we saw the budget in the first place. That, I regret that vote
I fully agree with
right
you on that
now.
one too,
And
yes.
again, we're trying to add, we set a budget, we vote on it, and then we amend, okay, well, more money here, more money here, more money. And I understand that the attorney is going above and beyond, and this really is not a reflection on the city attorney's work or not finding, and none of the above. It's about the budget. We gotta lock this down. We can't, every time something comes up, we keep saying, okay, well, we'll add it. Okay, it's just $3,000 here. Okay, it's just $5,000 there. When does, this is gonna be painful. We've all determined that this is gonna be painful. And, it is what it is. And
I think if I could, because you were gonna ask the question, when does it stop? And the answer is, it doesn't.
exactly,
That's what
but
we
it's
were
got
elected do.
to.
We have to, sometimes we gotta rob Peter to pay Paul, sometimes we
Yeah.
have to move money around, but we still have to run the city effectively
We
as well
do.
as efficiently.
I agree, but I just, no more raises. I can't justify any more raises until our budget comes somewhat within.
Is there a level you would be more comfortable
Yeah.
with than 8%? I mean, again, I'm trying to find us a way to come together and.
No, I'm pretty much hard and fast on that, but hey, I'm one vote, so.
Yeah, I
Well,
understand.
I guess specifically, what portion of the budget are you concerned with? Because we're,
The overall budget,
right.
everything.
The overall
We're-
budget is healthy, with the exception of the general fund, which we're trying to adjust.
But we're going in
on
with an
some
88.
past practice that was done. We're talking about a strong budget where when you look at the total budget, we're balanced and above.
But that's not how
with
it
the
was
exception of the
presented
general
to
fund.
us.
So we did, and one of the things.
We're going
that
in
we
with an
did-
$88,000 deficit.
Right, in
In
the
the
general
general
fund,
fund,
and
correct.
one of the major changes that we made to, one of the most significant changes that we made at the previous meeting was to move the attorney's payments to be spread out over a number of different funds. Am I correct?
Yes.
So how many different funds did we spread that out over?
Currently,
That's
3.
different too.
Okay, 3, so if we're talking about an additional 5% that is maybe, let's say $2,000 for the sake of argument, that's now spread over 3 funds, which are not the general fund. And so the general fund is where that deficit that we've been talking about is happening. So that's still a, a $700 hit to those 3 other funds over the course of the year, but now we're
And
talking
how
about.
many more contracts are we gonna go, okay, I'm not happy with the contract that I signed, so we come back to the same issue again and again and again.
So this is the first time we've revisited this contract since it was.
Right now, the year
True,
hasn't even
yes.
started yet.
I
When
mean,
does this contract expire?
it renews automatically every year.
Yeah, so it's,
So this is the first time we've revisited it since we signed it in '21.
3 years, reasonable contract, no raise.
I mean, all of the contracts that we look at are all on.
And they're not every contract we have is aligned to a particular date and time. I mean, if you start saying, well, all contracts will have a term that is
Well, go for a
timed
vote.
in September, so you
That's
can
all I can
plan
say.
for your budget in November, change the entirety of
I get
the
it.
structure of the city.
Is there any further discussion from council? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Kathy, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bain?
Yes.
Councilmember Furby?
Yes.
Councilmember Scantling?
Yes.
Councilmember, or Mayor Chapman?
Yeah. Hmm.
No.
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 Okay, motion passes 4-1. Moving on to permission from the police department to sponsor a recruit in the 2024 Regional Police Academy at Northern.
So first I'll give an update on the one we did last year, two we sponsored last year through the grant process. They are officially through their training and they're starting to be in their own cars now. We are currently down one, technically two, because we have the 3-year one that we haven't been able to fill either. I have looked into it. The applicants that I have gotten that we put out there are all, again, recruits. They're not certified at this point. I've looked back into the grant. I would be willing, and I will be, writing the grant again. It is up to, and what I've been told, I'm hoping to be the same. It looks like it would be the 24,000 per recruit, which would cover the cost, helps the cost for the, their wages during the academy. It worked out good this year. I'm just asking for that permission. Like I said, right now I got 6 applicants on my desk. I believe it's 6, and not one is certified at this point.
And
So-
like I told you this week, I fully support this, so I will make the motion to authorize the police department to sponsor a recruit in the Regional Police Academy.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Now we are moving on to public comment. This is limited to 3 minutes per person. And is there anybody that would like to speak? Claudia?
Claudia Demers, State 21 Marie Street, Ishpeming. Item number 20. You see the word on the street is correct, as the council is going into closed session to consider strategy, negotiations connected to a collective bargaining agreement. All of these agreements are done. The unions were all given a 5% increase for 2023 and a 4% increase starting in 2024. If you're opening a bargaining agreement for one bargaining unit, you better be prepared to open all bargaining units up for negotiation. And council members who have jobs should be talking at their places of employment, because word has gotten out. Some people want more money than what was agreed upon in their contract signing. And I've been having an issue with my water bill for the last 2 months again. Each month it's gone up $10 from 112 to 124, now it's 134. They sent out Donnie to plug in the computer to the meter. They're claiming we have a leak. We have no leaks. I think this is in retaliation for my speaking up at council meetings. And since blight was brought up, whoever is on that committee should take a ride on 7th Street and look at all the broken windows in the whole row of buildings on 7th Street. And you're taking money out of the water and sewer fund to pay Siren, and you're raising our water and sewer rates. Thanks.
Okay, next.
Mike Tompkins, 612 North 3rd Street. I didn't really plan on getting up again. However, going over, and I have nothing against your attorney. I've not worked with her. She seems to be a fine person. Everybody tells me so. I have no problem with that. My problem is the city charter. And the manager sitting here, he is the one that's responsible for enforcing the city charter. It's in your job description. It says you shall do this, you shall do that. You shall get a substitute attorney. Why not? You've had 3 years to do it. 3 years. And why hasn't it been done? And I don't expect a response because it'll be an excuse or a deflection of some sort. But I'm getting tired of it. And you might see me in a different situation here shortly. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else for public comment? Last call for public comment, okay.
John Schooler, 772 Michigan Street. So like I said earlier, I would hope that I get an answer this month about my insurance claim. I mean, it's only been 3 months. Nobody's reached out to me at all. So, and the other thing, I mean, you want to keep breaking contracts and renegotiating contracts. Why don't we just raise the water bill 10%? I mean, done with it. Then you don't have to take it out of anybody's funds. Raise it 15%. Give somebody else a raise. Why not? I mean, and then maybe we could go up to 20% and take a 5% out of that to fill frickin' potholes. Have a good night.
Last call for public comment? Okay. There, yeah, there's a 0. Okay, moving on to mayor and council reports, starting with Diz.
All I was going to comment on was, I attended the parade, the Christmas parade. I've been on, I think, almost every year of my life. It's always well attended. I've always enjoyed it. So I just want to thank all of the volunteers that make sure that this happens every year. I think it's a really nice event for our community, and especially everything at the Old Ish Park. That's all been donated. So many, many thanks to everybody who's made that possible. And happy holidays.
Okay, excellent, I echo that. Pat?
I went to the Commission on Aging meeting, Claudia, and it's been a long time.
Why are you referring to me on the Commission on Aging?
Remember you said you missed them? They're working on their financials and audit process, so we don't have another Chamber of Commerce incident. Nothing like that could happen. They've got all their ducks in a row. They're doing a very good job. They're also going over their bylaws. Been a long time. I think 82 was the last time they were looked at. They're doing that as well. Great group of people. People all the way up to Republic Township, Michigamme Township are all participating and actively participating. The townships are all contributing financially. So it's very, very good setup. I was really happy to
That whole
get back
team
to
is
those
phenomenal.
One thing that was brought up, if we could, and I took a ride prior to the meeting, we've got a lot of lights out, a lot of Christmas lights, and I had a couple people mention it, so I rode myself. So if we could get our guys to check them, and I found some street lights were out too. So if we could get those checked. That's all. Happy holidays to everybody and Merry Christmas.
Okay, Renell.
I was not present for the meetings this month. I was out of town. So I do have a copy of the minutes, which I will provide to the council for the DDA.
Okay, Lindsay.
So I attended, we had the joint meeting between the DDA and the Planning Commission at the end of November. And then we had a Planning Commission meeting on Monday evening. And so at the joint meeting, the major topics of conversation between the two groups were, we talked about some ideas for the pocket park between, in that vacant lot next to Buck Subs. That had been bounced back and forth between the Planning Commission and the DDA as to what to do with it. We've all sort of agreed that a pocket park was a very nice idea that everyone likes. So we talked about what we thought might go in there nicely. And we, at our meeting on Monday, the planning commission discussed further what sort of some ideas that we liked, and then we will pass it back to the DDA as was requested of us. We also discussed probably one of the biggest topics that comes up at almost every one of our planning commission meetings, which is relevant to the DDA, is the green space along Walton Road and what the future plan is for that. We have discussed at great length the benefit of green space versus development of housing or other types of things that might potentially go in there. And we had largely been under the impression that the DDA had very specific intents for that area, and they don't particularly. So I guess our group was a little, maybe, I don't want to say surprised, but sort of surprised at the same time to find that the DDA had no grand plans for that area. And I think that it was a general consensus that working to preserve that as green space and preserving and protecting the trails in that area was pretty high importance. So the Planning Commission was tasked to some extent with coming up with what kind of economic drivers there are, like what are the economic benefit of the trails through that area. So we discussed that on Monday, and there are, without like a legitimate study, it's difficult to actually quantify that, but we did identify that there are several businesses in town that are largely tied to that green space, either by person or by the nature of the business that they own. A number of people have moved to Ishpeming with, and this is sort of unofficial data, I would suppose, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Word of what? Anecdotal. Yes, anecdotal evidence that people that those are part of the reason that people are moving to Ishpeming, and that that green space and those trails also are drivers behind special events that happen in our city, of which we approved 2, 3 just today that deal with those spaces. So although we don't have any data to back those up, we thought that was pretty significant if you thought about like what kind of development could go over there that would do those things, that would bring those benefits for the city. I don't know what that quantifies out to, but those are substantial on a list. And then one of the other major topics that we discussed was potential changes to Main Street, and this is further down the road, but to help with ADA compliance for the West End Ski and Trail. They have a conditional permit for handicap access, which is challenged by the road and sidewalk design. So we came up with no solutions, but it was discussed. And then it's unfortunate that Mr. Tonkin has left the meeting, because we did also, the Planning Commission has been working on a short-term rental ordinance. We've been working on that probably for most of the year, and Al has provided us with a first draft. I would recommend that if you're interested, that you should seek that out and read it. He did speak to density limitations. We have not in our draft put in any density limitations, although we've talked about it at length. Part of it is we don't at the moment know exactly where and how many we have, and we've discussed it at length, and it's not currently in there. So
if I could just interject one thing. Lindsay said if you can get a hold of the draft, council, please remember that that's still their business. So if we get a hold of it and you review it, fabulous, but don't go back to planning commission people and say, oh, I think this should be or that.
Well, so we are working on it at the direction of council. We heard public comment and council directed the planning commission. So I think it would be reasonable if you have concerns that we hear those while we're still working on it.
And I have a question for you too.
Yeah.
How do we not know how many short-term rentals we have in the city? Shouldn't we have an idea on that?
We don't currently track it, so it's, I mean, that's part of the writing of the ordinance is to give us a mechanism to track it.
Okay.
Right now, you can go to those websites that advertise them and you can count them, but
Sure.
maybe you get them all, maybe you don't. So
Right.
that's part of the ordinance, is ensuring that we do have a count, that we know where they are, that all that. So until we know where those are and how many there are, it's difficult to put in density limitations. Another thing that we discussed is that, the city of Marquette has density limitations. They also have 6 staff in their office that manage that.
True.
So, so that is something I did when I was looking back through the LSCP. That is something that they had discussed doing under that heading of housing, was to have an inventory of rentals for the city, both long and short term, which would be hugely beneficial to the planning commission in doing this, also just beneficial in general, but at least, and that's not to say that we couldn't amend an ordinance later to include density limitations if we felt that that was prudent, but at the moment, it doesn't have them. So that was my main point to that.
I like your point, though, that
So the
LSCP could
city
do
isn't
that.
getting any revenue at all
No.
from these short term.
We need to
That's why
capture
we're
that.
working on an ordinance. So, and we have a first draft. We, talked through some changes to that at our meeting on Monday, and it's on our agenda every month, so.
Thanks for that update. That's really good. Yeah.
That's it.
Good job. All right. I guess I'll get on to mine. I want to thank the fire department for coming in, for using their training night to change the American flag at the Veterans Memorial. It was pretty tattered, and that group was trying to find someone to help them work on that for a while. So thanks to the fire department for doing that. I want to echo what Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Furby said tonight. I want to thank the volunteers for the parade and everyone who makes the Santa House possible in that area. With a very special thank you to Brett Antela. He provides a lot of support for that and does a lot of that work himself right around there. So I definitely wanted to pass along my thanks. I also would like to just say I have a coffee hours coming up. First evening one is Monday, December 11th at 6 o'clock at the Senior Center. And then my normal one is Friday, December 22nd, 1 p.m. at the Senior Center. I have reached out to do some invitations for those as well, maybe a council member if they want to attend. I've also passed those along to Senator McBroom, as he is looking to get back to Ishpeming for another one. I would like to also pass along my condolences to the Marquette community on the loss of former mayor and current Board of Light and Power member, Bob Nemi. He was a public servant there in Marquette on many different times. As I said, a former mayor, but he was also involved in several of the community organizations there too. So I want to pass my condolences on to Marquette, as well as Joy, Allison, and Stephen, his wife and children. And then I also do have a question. Where do we stand with like our water freeze-ups this year? And are we, has that been any more difficult just based on like the lack of snow? I'm just curious on that. Oh, really? Okay. All right, perfect. That would be it for me then. Moving on then to manager's report. Craig.
So I will say that our new appointed representative at the county commission, Dana, has visited twice now since the last monthly meeting. One just to sit and talk and kind of understand the lay of Ishpeming, and then earlier this week we took her on a tour and showed her some of the facilities. She was very excited about seeing the senior center and how that went. We went over to Public Works, Fire, Police, City Hall, and we then crossed the road, and she wasn't aware of the efforts going on at the what used to be the district court with the RSB.
Yep.
The acronyms throw me off, but we had a good long conversation about some of the ideas for linking Mark Tran, them, the Housing Commission, and the Senior Center for some of their transportation issues, and maybe even looking at potential for a larger EDA kind of a grant to explore what might be better for transportation in the area. But that went well. She'll continue to visit. But her knowledge of Negaunee is significantly greater than her knowledge of Ishpeming, so she's spending some time here trying to make sure she understands our community and where she can help. So that went well. I am part of the Intergovernmental Housing Task Force for Marquette. And one of the things that we've done is that the communities have participated, including Ishpeming, have participated in this market study. So we were sitting in a meeting getting a lot of the data dump. It's still being put into narrative, but there's pages and pages and pages of information about what's going on in the housing trends across the community. There were some surprises. Myself and Giroux looked at each other and shook our heads and thought about maybe changing some strategy on some things that we do related to land bank and brownfield authority. So it's gonna be interesting, but that report's supposed to be hopefully done in the January timeframe for us all to look at and kind of understand. And then there'll be a way in which they explain it, because it's so much data. It's overly complicated for not being a participant and then just looking at data. So we are discovering housing as a whole and what's going on. Our developer got their application into MISTA on the December 1st deadline. And so we're excited to see what happens with that for the LICTA and whether or not the downtown development will occur or not. Probably a couple months before we hear anything. We still have not heard anything related to the state's community grants yet, but that should be any day. Their last message was the review would be done in November and some sort of announcement in December. Hopefully it's before Christmas, but we don't know. And then just a reminder that tomorrow is National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. And Saturday, go Army, beat Navy.
Fair enough. I will actually echo that, as my dad's an Army veteran, and he'll go Army, yeah. Okay, now we will be, can I get a motion to go into closed session pursuant to MCL 15-268C?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. So we will be going into closed session. You may wait, if you want to wait. Oh, roll call first, yeah.
Councilmember Bean?
Yes.
Councilmember Furby?
Yes.
Councilmember Halverson?
Here.
Councilmember Scanlon?
Yes.
Mayor Chapman?
Yes, and those of you who are in attendance, if you can wait in the hall or downstairs and can come back in for any possible motions that may come out of that or not, so. And Mary, I have
Jason, if you'd move us to
some
closed
info
session.
for you from our representative
Who is it?
Jason, we're coming back in out of closed session.
Grant, did you know Bob?
Folks,
We're in open session.
We're in open session.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
All right. We're back. Then I would make a motion to authorize the city manager to proceed with negotiations as discussed in closed session.
Support. Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Kathy, roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yep.
Yes. Lindsay?
Yep, I would also make a motion to authorize the city manager to have a special conference with Ishpeming.
Support. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Do I have another motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Support. We are adjourned.